Right, let's get into the next topic now. The National Judicial Council has extended the tenure of the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Odeh, by another 3 months.
The council took the decision on the grounds that it may be possible for the Senate, which is currently on recess, to reconvene and screen Odeh before Friday. Now, when his constitutional 3 months tenure as acting CJN would expire. The acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, on Wednesday forwarded Odeh's name to the Senate for confirmation. And barely 1 day before the expiration of the tenure of Walter Odeh as the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, some lawyers have expressed worry about the legal implication of the delay of Odeh's confirmation. Let's take this report by Wendy Agbo.
On November the 1st, appointed Justice Odeh as the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria after he was recommended by the National Judicial Council. By February the 10th, Justice Odeh will be constitutionally eligible to continue in that position. Some lawyers in Lagos find the situation unconventional and disturbing.
Illegal on the part of the President not to have forwarded that name, the name of the Honorable Justice Walter Odeh, to the Senate for confirmation. I strongly believe that the judiciary is a separate organ of government. It is not dependent on the executive, neither is it dependent on the legislature.
It's unfortunate. It's an aberration. I think it's about the first time that this country will be experiencing such a thing. I think that it is one of the ugliest parts of the administration of Muhammadu Buhari.
Traditionally, if you look at it historically, it has never happened, and it's not meant to happen anyway, because the necessary procedure has been triggered, and one would have expected that stemming from that particular exercise, the thing would have been seamless.
But human rights lawyer and senior advocate Femi Falana thinks there is nothing irregular about the issue.
231 of the Constitution has provided for a mandatory period of 3 months for an acting Chief Justice of Nigeria. For me, we are still within the 3 months. So there's no basis, there's no cause for alarm. And this is not the first time we are having an acting Chief Justice in the country. Right now, we are having many acting chief judges in the states. Heavens will not collapse. The government will have to address this problem.
Wendy Agbo, TVC News, Lagos.
All right, the heavens will certainly not collapse over anything, but I will take a look at all of those. Joining us is the lawyer, James Ahigbe. Good morning. It's good to have you join us right now. Good to have you on the show. Good morning. And from Port Harcourt, we also have another lawyer, Eugene Odeh. Eugene, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, nice to have you join us. We'll be going on a break right now before we get into the discussion, gentlemen. Yes. Let's go on a break. We come back on this. Stay with us.
All right, it's talk time. We already introduced our guests to you, but let's just do that one more time. James Ahigbe is a lawyer. He's right here in the studio with us. Thank you so much. And Eugene Odeh is a lawyer also in our Port Harcourt studio. Now, so much brouhaha following the non-confirmation of the acting CJN in the person of Justice Walter Odeh. What do you make of all the drama that has surrounded this confirmation? And then, of course, you have the VP, acting president, who has just submitted his name less than 48 hours to the expiration of his tenure as acting CJN.
Constitutionally, there was no basis for the brouhaha because Justice Odeh, in acting capacity, was doing so within the 3-month period provided in the Constitution. But I think the main reason many Nigerians raise alarm or concern was whether the president, in his usual or in his characteristic style of governance, which some of us have found very unpalatable. He is not cautious of time, and there's no country that is determined to develop that will be indifferent to the dynamics of time, because it took the president almost 6 months, about 6 months, to constitute his cabinet, and almost 3 months to appoint his aides, and that is unprecedented in the history of this country. In fact, I'm not aware of any country in the world where the cabinet, the president will delay the crucial of his government for as long as 6 months. So people were understandably worried as to why Justice Onoghe's name was not submitted to the Senate. So 2 months, it was getting to the 3 months, and the constitutional crisis was looming, and that was why people were worried. Yeah. And it is good that the acting president has done the needful by submitting Justice Onoghe's name to the Senate for confirmation.
Okay, let's bring in Eugene in here from our Port Harcourt studio. Eugene, James Ahigbe in the studio now said that he just talked about, I guess you've been listening, the body language of the president in the past has not really made Nigerians to trust that this is good. This is going to work within the time frame. What has been your concern over the controversy of not sending the Chief Justice's name to the Senate before he did?
Mr. Mike, for me, I don't think there's any brouhaha. Okay. Constitutionally, according to what you heard the learned senior advocate, Femi Falana, what he said, constitutionally, there's nothing wrong. The president has acted within powers provided by the Constitution. There's really no need for the controversy. If you go to section 231 of the Constitution, it is very clear as to how the Chief Justice of the Federation emerges. The law says that the President shall appoint upon the recommendation of the National Judicial Council, okay, and then subject to the confirmation of the Senate. By the way the Constitution is drafted, there's really nothing wrong that has happened so far. Subsection 4 and subsection 5 deals with the issue of Chief Justice in acting capacity. He says where the office of the Chief Justice of the Federation has become vacant or the person occupying it has become incapacitated, okay, that the President shall, on recommendation of the NJC, appoint an acting Chief Justice of the Federation who shall act in not more than 3 months. And subsection 5 of that same provision of the Constitution says, except when the NJC recommends, the person shall not be reappointed. In other words, the NJC has the power to reappoint, to re-recommend the acting Chief Judge to the President for reappointment. But the President on his own cannot reappoint without the NJC's recommendation. That is how that law operates, and I think there's nothing untoward that has happened so far. For me, I think the reason for the controversy is just the fact that people feel that the executive has been exercising some sort of excessive powers, attempting to encroach into the judiciary, and that has been the reason why people have been edgy over this period. And for me, I think that the provisions of the Constitution, we need to review those provisions of the Constitution as to how Chief Judges of the state and the Chief Justice of the Federation emerge. I have a query with subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution. The fact that the President will have the power and play a role in the emergence of a Chief Judge, that defeats the principle of separation of power. The essence of having the 3 arms of government is to make for separation of power the primary essence is for checks and balances. But when you have the president playing a major role in the emergence of the head of another arm of government, it just makes that arm of government subservient to the executive. That is my query. I think that the ball should stop on the table of the NJC. The president should have no role. The executive should have no role at all to play in what happens in the judiciary. That brings to fore the issue that just happened recently, where the DSS, by instruction of the president, barged into the houses of judicial officers and arrested judicial officers as though.
Eugene, you know what, we'll come to all of that, but let me, at the same section 4, which you talked about, let me try as much as I can to actually quote it. Subsection 4 of the same constitution talks about the expiration of the 3 months, but the issue of non-reappointing of a person whose appointment has lapsed seems to be vague at the best. Now, some have said it is very confusing, that particular section that talks about the lapsing of the tenure of the acting CJN. You want to shed some more light on it for us? He is saying there is no cause for alarm, there was no reason for the brouhaha in the first place.
Now, the subsection 4 deals with appointment of an active Chief Justice of the Federation. And the responsibility of appointing an active Chief Justice for the Federation rests squarely on the President.
That's a substantive?
No.
Acting. Okay.
But there's a caveat. He must appoint the most senior justice of the Supreme Court.
Which Onore is?
Yes. So what he did by appointing Justice Onore in acting capacity was very constitutional. But there's a time frame. The acting capacity, his appointment as an acting Chief Justice must not exceed 3 months. However, as my learned friend said, his reappointment is subject to recommendation of the National Judicial Council. But the first appointment as acting Chief Justice is not subject, by the president. It's not subject to the recommendation of the National Judicial Council. But after the 3 months, if the president and there's no substantive Chief Justice, the reappointment in acting capacity must be at the recommendation of the National Judicial Council, and that is exactly what has happened. And
that looks like exactly what's going to happen now, with the Senate saying that they are not going to be railroaded or be stampeded to confirm the acting CJN, yes,
in anticipation
of the lapse
of the
end of his tenure as acting
that
CJN.
The National Judicial Council, in exercise of its power, as contained in section 231 subsection 5, has recommended the reappointment of Justice Onore in acting capacity, even though his name has been submitted to the Senate for confirmation, subject to the confirmation as a substantive Chief Justice by the Senate. The Senate will, in exercise of its legislative powers, subject Justice Onore's nomination or appointment to the usual legislative due process. Even when they resume on the 21st, the Judiciary Committee of the Senate will screen him and submit his report to the Senate. Or the Senate might, in its wisdom, screen Justice Onore on the plenary by asking him to come forward, and questions will be asked, and decision will be taken subsequently.
Okay. Eugene, let's come back to what you were saying earlier on about the president or the executive is not supposed to play a role in whomever emerges the Chief Justice of Nigeria. But in the case where the Senate has to be the one to vet, does that amount to interference between one arm of government and the other?
These issues we are discussing here are very germane. And there are things that it has called for the need for the National Assembly to do something very responsible to ensure that this portion of the Constitution, of course, don't forget that this provision of the law is impari material with Section 271 of the Constitution that deals with emergence of chief judges of states. This is the reason why we had the controversies that engulfed the judiciary. If you remember the Rivers State judiciary crisis that lasted for nearly 2 years in the twilight of the administration of His Excellency, Right Honorable Chibike Amechi, where the courts were shut, were under lock and key for nearly 2 years. The judiciary arm of government was shut down completely. These were the issues that were brought up at that time. The role of the governor in the emergence of the CJ was the reason why the judiciary was actually shut down. And what I have actually advocated over the time is that provision of the law, is it applicable? Can we actually operate that law as it is in this country without having a recurrence of these controversies from time to time? We know that Nigerian politicians cannot be trusted. When you give them a mile, they want to take more. All right? So I think that the judiciary should be saved from all this unnecessary embarrassment by removing these politicians from the role, giving them roles that will see to the emergence of chief judges. Now, if you look at the legislature, the judiciary has no role to play in the emergence of the heads of the legislature, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The judiciary has no role to play in the emergence of the head of the executive, the President, and the governors of states. Why do you now give the powers to appoint the head of another arm of government to the heads of the executive? When you do that, you stifle and reduce the powers of the judiciary, which is also a very powerful arm of government, which of course is there, like I said, for the primary function of bringing about checks and balances.
All right,
that's my query.
Okay,
Eugene,
let me put you on hold a little. Let me put you on hold. We'll come back to this because we'll go on a break now. And when we come back, we'll be having Foladele to give us perspective on social media. Stay with us.
So many dynamics playing out in this CJN controversy.
I've always said, behind the cameras, what goes on, what we talk about sometimes. You don't want to know.
Our guest in the studio is James Ahigbe. He's a lawyer. And of course, in our Port Harcourt studio, we have Eugene Odeh there, also a lawyer. You were making a point earlier, of course, but let me draw this particular issue that we're trying to talk about just as we went on that break. The acting CJN, Justice Walter Odeh, is the chairman of the NJC. And in deliberating over these issues, he will be deliberating over an issue that he himself has interest.
Yes.
So how does that play out in all of this?
Yes, the composition of the National Judicial Council is contained in third schedule, part 1, section 20 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and makes the Chief Justice or the acting Chief Justice of the Federation the chairman of that august body, and the next most senior justice of the Supreme Court, the deputy chairman. He is the chairman even when an issue in which he has an interest is being deliberated upon. He is to preside. If he presides, he would not have breached the provision of the Constitution. But the concern which you have rightly expressed of many Nigerians is that how can you preside over an issue in which you are interested? It depends we don't know what plays out whenever the National Judicial Council is meeting. It is possible the presiding officer or the constitutionally appointed presiding officer may decide to excuse himself when a matter that concerns his interest is being deliberated upon. You and I would not know.
Okay.
It is only when what we only hear is that a decision has been taken. What went behind the scene, the public is not.
It's all right, because that clause you put in there, it seems to put a rest to it somehow. But let's allow, before we bring Foladele in, Eugene, we were talking about, Ngozi was asking a question earlier on. The Walter Onohe, Justice Walter Onohe is the chairman of the NJC. And the deliberation over him being the Chief Justice or the Acting Chief Justice, as the case may be, he is supposed to preside over it. So we were thinking, or we were asking, how can he preside over an issue that he has interest in it?
Mike, you know, in law, we say nemo judex in causa sua. You cannot be a judge in your own court.
Okay.
All right. But in some instances, I don't see anything wrong in anybody presiding over an issue where he has an interest in. The chief judge, who is the chairman of the NJC, is not the sole administrator of the NJC. There are other members of the NJC. In this country, we have seen situations where speakers have presided over their own impeachment, and they were still impeached. If the NJC, in their wisdom, find that this man is not competent and is not fit and proper to ascend to that office, I'm very sure, even though he presides over it, he will not be sent, he will not be recommended. So I don't see anything wrong in him presiding over a meeting where he issues that will be discussed borders on his interests.
But there are concerns.
Right? I don't see anything wrong in that.
Eugene, there are concerns that he could have some level of undue influence on the judgment of others, because he is the most senior, and certainly others are looking forward to being senior someday.
Like I said, if you look at how the NJC is constituted, you will see that there are other members who are equally influential within the NJC, who can take decisions that will even overreach, will even affect the person of the chairman of the NJC. So I cannot speak for them right now, because I don't even know who presided over that meeting that recommended him as it were. But most times it is tidier when issues like that are to be discussed. You step aside and allow your junior to preside over.
All right. Before we, of course, we'll bring in Foladele at this point, and then right after that, we'll try to find out what the options are before the Senate on this CJN.
I wasn't sure if you were bringing me in.
Yes, no, we were bringing you. If I was going to bring you in.
Yeah, you kept calling my name.
I had to preside over this particular.
Okay.
Presided over.
Speaking of presiding, that was a very good question you raised about presiding over a case that you actually have interest in. But good morning, James. Good morning, Eugene. Let's see the other questions and issues that have been raised online by some Nigerians. Very interesting, I must say. You find out. Hey, Kogi first one says, Nigeria is officially a movie full of actors. Acting president, acting CJN, acting EFCC chairman, and acting citizens. We're all actors, eh? So... Diwan Ayekuta says, Nigeria isn't Gambia. It's a shame that we don't have a CJN. We can't be fighting corruption, and both heads of judiciary and the FCC will be acting. Femi Fani-Kayode says, I commend acting president Yemi Osinbajo for sending Justice Onogen's name to the Senate for confirmation. This will enhance national unity. And someone replied, saying, that's good of him. PMB would have sent another northerner or his in-law. And the last, second to the last, Olatunde Abraham says, Sans divided over acting CJ and Onogen's appointment. And then the last one from Big Daddy J says, make no mistake, Onogen CJN's name was only sent because of the increasing uproar. If Buhari was around, it would have been different. James, what do you think about people saying that if the president were to be around, maybe his name would not have been sent?
No, well, that is in the realm of speculation. We see,
Of course, sorry, let me just add that they're, of course, implying that in the past, you know, the president only sticks to Northerners or his family members. That was like someone said. So, yeah.
Well, you see, the appointment of a Chief Justice of the Federation or this forwarding a name to the Senate for confirmation, one of the documents that must accompany that name is the security report, possibly by the DSS.
But of course,
I'm reliably informed.
He's been cleared by the DSS.
Yes, I'm reliably informed that Justice Odeh was being thoroughly investigated by the security agencies, having at the back of our minds the report of late Justice Kayode Esho of 1994, which was reviewed by Justice Babalake in 1999. It has been alleged that Kayode's Esho's report was not favorable to Justice Odeh, but it was subsequently cleared by Babalake's panel. All these issues will be examined. My only problem with Buhari's style of governance, it may be doing the right thing, but we will never let the public know. Yes, there's no communication. So people begin to say all kinds of things. Look at the Southern Kaduna, the massacre. We did not know that military formations were being established there. A mobile police force had been set up there. No communication, so people are bound. The public
gives room for speculation.
Okay, so that's your only problem with his governance. You don't agree that he tends to stick to Northerners.
All right,
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Fola, thank you.
All right, Eugene, let's bring you in here. So, what are the options left for the Senate? Of course, they are saying that they will carry out due process, investigate, and carry out everything they need to before, of course, confirming the CJN, or acting CJN, as substantive CJN. What are the options now that his tenure lapses tomorrow?
Yes.
February 10th, actually.
February 10th.
Will he be, will he continue as acting CJN or what?
To go straight to your question first, there are some other things I want to say concerning especially the remarks that are coming from the members of the public.
Yeah.
But to go straight to your question, the Senate as it is right now, I don't think they will be able to accept a call and...
All right, so we have... we lost the connection there, but we will establish and come back on there. Now, let me rephrase this question somehow. Okay, Eugene, do we have you? Can you hear us?
That have been created. Oh. Yes, I can hear you.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead. We lost you for a moment there.
Go ahead.
Okay, I said my concern is the issue to avoid a constitutional crisis where there will be a lacuna on Friday when the period stipulated for the CJN to operate in acting capacity will elapse. To fill that void and that lacuna, I'm sure is the reason why the acting president has acted preempting the Senate that they may not be able to meet up with the time that is allotted for the CJN. So I think it is proper that he is brought in the second time in acting capacity to fill that void. Nothing stops them as he's serving his second tenure as an acting CJ within that period to come through with all the screening exercise and do whatever they want to do. But to go home, I will want us to revisit the Constitution. There is no problem with what Mr. President has done. There is no problem with what the former governor of Rivers State did. the problem, like I've always said, is with the law itself that has given reason to these unnecessary controversies that we see unfolding in the country. I am happy that it has gone to the national. Now, the whole country probably will begin to look at the need to amend that provision of the Constitution to ensure that the hands of politicians are removed from the emergence of the CJN or CJ of a state. Okay. If you look at, there are two critical issues to look at in that law. One is the qualification, of becoming, the qualification of the person to become the CJN. The second one is the qualification of the person to become the acting CJN. These are two issues that we need to address. We need to look at subsection 2, and I think subsection 3 talks about the qualification. It says that the person to qualify for the office of the CJN of the country should be a lawyer who has practiced for up to 15 years. Would have been called to the Nigerian bar and has practiced law for up to 15 years and didn't say anything more, which means the president or the governor is not bound to pick a sitting judge. They can just go and pick anybody from even the bar to become a CJN. These are the controversies that I want us to begin to look at, and the need to review this law, if indeed, as that law is now, if it will serve any purpose, if it will serve us good in this country. I think that the office of the CJN is a very powerful office that should be left for experienced hands. It should be from the bench, and it should be for the most senior judge, because as it is now, it is open-ended, and it allows room for all sorts of unnecessary political manipulation by the politicians.
All right.
Secondly, I strongly feel that it is not proper for both either the executive or the legislature to play any role in the emergence of the
Yes,
CJ
you have made that fact clear already.
But James in the studio has a contrary opinion to all that. But we'll allow James make his opinion on that. Let's go on a break. We'll come back on there. Stay with us. All right, thanks for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. We've been talking about the seeming apprehension in the legal section of Nigeria and even amongst Nigerians when they had the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, his tenure was elapsing, and there wasn't any movement to send the name for the either renewal or the confirmation of him substantively few days to the end of his acting capacity. But that has been settled now with the Vice President sending his name to the Senate, and also the NJC sending his acting capacity. We're referring to Justice Walter Odeh as the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria for the next 3 months. So we have James Ahigbe with us in the studio. He is a lawyer. We also have Eugene Odeh with us in our Port Harcourt studio. Now, James, you had a contrasting opinion to what James was saying when he was talking about the fact that the other arms of government should not even have any role to play in who emerges as the Chief Justice of Nigeria.
Yes. If the doctrine of separation of powers, as propounded by ancient philosophers led by Montesquieu, it's not
Montesquieu.
Yeah, it's not synonymous with compartmentalization of government. That each arm of government should be put in a work compartment. If people do not see anything wrong in the president sending a ministerial list to the Senate for confirmation, and also why the ministers they are the appointees of the president. They are going to work with the president. Yes. So he can as well go ahead and appoint them without the.
But his argument, Eugene's argument, is: look, the legislature and of course the executive have no input coming from the judiciary. So why should these other two arms of government have such influence when it comes to the judiciary?
Can the president for sure with that be sworn in by the Chief Justice? It's not.
So, there you go.
So there's the three arms of government.
When we talk about that, that is interlapping roles. Yeah. But when it comes to the appointment of somebody from within an arm of government, that is
not the problem of the judiciary.
Okay.
The mode of appointment. The only amendment I would like to be effected in the emergence of Chief Justice or a Chief Judge of a state is that once the National Judicial Council makes its recommendation to either the president or the governor, as the case may be, the president or the governor will have no discretion. Must forward, in case of the president, that recommended name
from the NJC.
Yeah, from the NJC. If I let me say this, it is not the NJC alone that is involved in the recommendation. You have also the National Judicial Service Commission, which is one of the bodies established under Section 153 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. It is that body that submits a list to the National Judicial Council, from which the National Judicial Council now makes its recommendations to the president. So, but because the National Service Commission is not involved in the submission, in the recommendation, as it were, to the president, people are not aware. So the National Judicial Council does not just sit and make recommendation. Its recommendation is based on the list submitted by the Federal Judicial Service Commission.
Okay.
And now the three arms, because of the importance of the Chief Justice of the Federation, the three arms of government are involved. If the executive does not play any role, because I have earlier said here that the appointment or forwarding the name must be accompanied by the report of the security agencies. The judiciary does not control the security agencies. So if the National Judicial Council just makes a recommendation, how is it going to ensure that the person they have appointed has undergone security checks?
So in other words, the whole idea is to ensure that whoever emerges CJN, whether at the state level or the federal level, is above board.
Yes.
Incorruptible.
Yeah, incorruptible.
All right. So now, Eugene, let me just divert just a little. The whole issue surrounding the confirmation or otherwise of the acting CJN seems to have thrown up a very fundamental issue that concerns Nigeria as a nation. That for some reason there seems to be the tendency to look at things through ethnic or political lenses. So how can we begin to change that particular narrative so that whether it's been over 30 years that a CJN emerged from the South would not really matter for a country like Nigeria?
Ngozi, that's the point I was making. You can share the sentiments of Nigerians, even from those tweets that you read, that they had this apprehension that Mr. President would probably prefer someone from the north, in spite of the fact that the most senior judge who was supposed to be in line was Honorable Justice Odeh. Like I said, all right, unless we amend this law, the Constitution, that particular provision of the Constitution, to save the judiciary from unnecessary political interference, where you begin to have all these kind of emotions and all these kind of suspicions and sentiments being expressed by Nigerians. Actually, there was this fear which was imminent, considering the body language of Mr. President, that he would have preferred a northerner to occupy that position, in spite of the fact that indeed the tradition has been that the most senior judge, the most senior justice of the Supreme Court should ordinarily, seamlessly, move into that position without all this unnecessary controversy. Like I said, the reason for this is because, number two, subsection 2 of that provision of the Constitution says it is not compulsory that it must be the most senior judge to be appointed into the office of a substantive Chief Justice of the Federation. It's not compulsory that it must be the most senior judge. It only suffices that the person must have practiced law for up to 15 years. The person must have been a lawyer in Nigeria called to the Nigerian bar and has been in practice for up to 15 years. He says nothing about whether from the bench or from the bar. That is the query we have. And we are saying that that provision of the law is actually confusing. There's need for a review of that law. It has to be according to tradition.
All right.
It has to be according to seniority.
Eugene, all right. Hold on a second.
The aspect of the acting CJ, that one
Yes.
is settled. That one, there's no issue. There's no problem with that.
Do you agree with that? That particular, opening, which President Buhari could have taken advantage of and not necessarily pick CJ, who happens to be the most senior.
That the qualification as provided for in section 231 subsection 2 is grossly inadequate. For a Chief Justice, it means people like us, immediately you have a minimum of 50 years post core. You are eligible.
You're qualified.
Yeah, you are qualified. I think that diminishes the significance, the importance of that office. I agree with him.
He opens a window for any political interference.
But that can be amended to restrict the appointment to justices of the Supreme Court. To justices of the Supreme Court, not necessarily the most senior. Assuming the most senior is found to have to be involved in corrupt practices.
What will happen?
Security reports will also knock him off, maybe, and then go to the next most senior.
That is why I do not entirely agree with a very, very senior lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria. Was the National Judicial Council has recommended a particular person. The president
is bound by law.
But the problem is that after the recommendation, there are certain other things like the security check. Assuming the recommended person is found wanting, and there is irrefutable evidence to that effect. So
the laws are there, so the executive will be bound by law to also produce DSS in carrying out the security checks. It's just like in a situation where elections are conducted. The lawyers are not involved in any electoral process, but when there is a dispute in an election process, so in fact we've seen situations where governors who have been sworn in, the courts or tribunal, which is a product of lawyers and all of that, decide that your election was null and void. So I guess these are all interlapping.
So some of these things should not be cast in stone.
Okay, all right, James.
Reality is should be the word.
Okay. James Ahigbe, thank you very much for coming on the program this morning. Thank you
so much.
And Eugene Odeh, thank you for talking to us from Port Harcourt. Have a great day ahead. Come to the end of today's edition of the program. Tomorrow we'll be back again with other stories to discuss. Have a great day ahead. I am Mike Okwache.
And I am Ngozi, and we will have the best of the day. See you tomorrow.